I don't buy this accelerationist bull. I don't buy the black pill. Trust us, we're all dead in nuclear annihilation in 50 years anyway, so let's just have a great World War III right now. No, I don't buy that. What you're talking about is countries that are first world or second world countries completely bowing down to a foreign country's military leadership telling them what their laws need to be. You identify problems with Brussels and people like Orban that speak up against some of the problems with Brussels. At the same time, you say, let's replace that with someone who would have even more authority to be able to make decisions in these countries. They wouldn't accept it. Again, my alternative would be better to dissolve the EU. Your alternative is you talk about problems of national sovereignty and how these individual countries don't like being under the thumb of Brussels, and then say, so let's replace the leaders in Brussels with Vladimir Putin. No, they wouldn't accept it. Just like the United States, in the hypothetical I gave, which you can't answer for, may despise leadership of someone like Kamala Harris if she'd have been president. But there's no way that these people would have welcomed China coming in militaristically and then taking over. Okay. And then making decisions in our... Do you believe that? Can you answer that question and then we can move? Will you acknowledge...
Do coups happen? Do civil wars happen?
Yes.
Yeah. So there can be internal conflict in a country. And just because there's an outside invading force doesn't mean that there's not people on the inside who want to rebel against the system anyway.
Okay, sure. Would you say that's true in the United States?
Not necessarily in terms of the United States, but even Irish history, like the likes of the French and the Germans and stuff, provided arms and stuff for the Irish when they were rebelling against the English.
The point I'm trying to make is you take a scenario that's true, but it's not analogous to what we're talking about.
Yes, what you're saying, Rob, is that there's no way this can happen. That like the country will always band together. When I'm listing off countries that were former Soviet Union countries, and you're saying there's no way they'll accept Russian rule when they literally give all their points to Russia in the fucking Eurovision.
No,
there's that much love for Russia.
You are making a point. Yes, it is true that in any given country, or as a general rule of thumb, there are civil wars that exist. Imagine this. I would say, will you acknowledge that a nuclear weapon's been deployed? And you're like, of course I'd acknowledge that. Then you concede that this would be the end of the world. You would say, wait a minute.
No,
what does this one imminent truth... Let me finish. What does this one imminent truth that, well, there have been civil wars and there have been coups. We're talking right now about the fact that saying that if you took a military invasion of Europe, of the European Union, that yes, almost all of the countries would dramatically oppose that.
No.
Do you think the United Kingdom, the people of the United Kingdom, would welcome being invaded by Russia and Putin being their new leader, which they have no democratic efforts to change their own policies? Do you think
not the UK, but Estonia, Latvia.
Okay, but you're not saying
Romania, Bulgaria.
I notice your prompt
they would welcome it.
I notice your prompt wasn't Estonia, Latvia. It was the entirety of the EU.
It was the entirety EU, yes.
Right. Okay, so let's go through the countries one by one, and you tell me. Let's get a list of the European countries. You tell me how many countries would welcome the military invasion by Russia. Let's see. I'll just bring
like I was saying, Rob, it doesn't necessarily have to be a military invasion. I want to deal with one sec, Rob. I want to deal with two claims that you made, right? This whole thing of like that, there's no way this can happen. The reason why I brought up civil war and internal conflict in a country is this whole like idea that you have that like these countries all of a sudden just become nationalists all of a sudden. And like I said, when you're bringing up the UK, that's one thing. UK, France, and maybe Germany, because depending on what way you view Germany, like in terms of the like it's basically France and the UK that's causing all this conflict. Because when you look at the vast majority of the EU countries, they would actually be more in favor with Russia's policies than the current EU policies.
It would not matter.
I said, the same way Trump is doing the same thing in Canada and Greenland, where it doesn't have to be military. This is with your second claim. This whole thing is it has to be military. It does not necessarily have to be, because like I said, when you list off these countries, these are all former Soviet states.
Again, this is nonsensical. We agree that if we're going to take a impossible to occur hypothetical, like your prompt, that we should envision that it would happen in the most likely scenario. And the way that it would happen would have to be military conquest. It is a pipe dream and laughable that you're like, Russia's just going to declare, we rule the EU now, and all these European countries go, okay, I guess. That's not happening. It's not going to happen. Let's go through the list of the countries.
I will give you props, Rob. I just want to give you props, like real quick. Like that is nice that you keep going back to it's impossible, all this kind of stuff. But go ahead, go with your question.
It's not that I'm saying it's impossible. I'm saying, like, okay, I'll say this. I'll counter proposal. My counter proposal is everyone never sin again. Which one's preferable? That Russia should take over the EU or all sin is eliminated in the world? Which one's preferable?
Wait, actually, philosophically speaking, I'd say Russia taking over the EU.
I disagree. I think that all sin should be eliminated and we should all become Eastern Orthodox.
Without sin, how can you have virtue?
Doesn't matter.
If there's no choice, then it's not actual virtue.
Are you Christian?
No.
Oh, you're not. You're advocating for the Eastern Orthodox takeover of the European Union. You're not even Christian.
Mm-hmm. Because
my faith would be such that
it's not. This is not just me and you, Rob. There's chat sitting out there as well.
My virtue doesn't need to be challenged. I'm not saying that sin wouldn't be possible. I'm saying that we all decide to be Christ-like and stop sinning. The potentiality for sin would still exist. We just choose to face back against it. Now, how would that not be preferable?
Yeah,
no more murder, no more abortion.
Let's go down the path. I can grant that.
So that would be more preferable, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay, then I win the debate.
How'd you win the debate?
Because my prompt's more apt than yours. It leads to a better situation.
No, like that's fair enough. What I'm combating is you're saying it's impossible.
No, what I'm saying is
it's quite likely.
No, what I'm saying
when you add things up, the only people that are against Russia are France and the UK, and they're backed up by Canada and Australia.
If we take your prompt, we must look at were these hypotheticals that aren't likely to occur. What would the scenario be necessary to make those scenarios to occur? It is not in the realm of possibility, nor did you say this in your prompt, that Russia will simply declare, we now rule the EU, and the people of the EU go, okay. Instead, it would require military intervention, right? And you're like, yeah, but there's some countries that would welcome a change of leadership and would give up their national sovereignty and say, we accept that now Putin is our ruler. I don't believe that for any country. So what we're going to do is go through the countries in the European Union and you tell me what country you think is going to voluntarily acquiesce to Putin saying, I now rule your country.
Yeah, so Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Bulgaria.
We'll go one by one through them. We can be fast about it. Austria?
Yeah.
You think Austria?
No, not Austria.
Okay, Austria.
Estonia.
Austria, what, in Belgium?
Oh, no, sorry. In terms of Austria would be a tough one because Austria and Hungary, they're close related in terms of culture, would be a close one.
Okay, so you want to put Austria in. Yeah. The government of Austria, if Putin says, I now rule your country, says yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, just by the way, just so you're listening in the audience, do you hear this bullshit? Do you hear this?
No.
Okay, let's put it in the tally.
Yeah, like we can do the one by one, but like what I'm saying is that like I can list off like plenty of EU countries that would side with Russia.
They wouldn't. Then why aren't they? Why aren't they leaving the EU and saying we side with Russia? Why aren't
because
they?
that takes time. What I'm trying to point out is that the EU itself. One sec, Rob. This is what you need to deal with. Why the fuck would an Estonian sign up to the European army when all they're really fighting for there is France and the UK? Why would they give their life against the Russian?
Why would they give their life? Why would they give their life for the Russians against America?
One sec. They're more culturally related to Russia than they would be with the UK.
Okay, so then they would sign up to fight a war against America, who would fight Russia, as you've already said, once this occurs. Mm-hmm. So the Estonians would voluntarily sign up to fight on the behalf of Russia against Americans.
Yeah. What I'm trying to get to is this would be a gradual process.
How would it be?
Russia could start swallowing up countries like Estonia, Latvia, all this kind of shit. And like I said, Rob, you're saying that like this won't work, like Russia won't be able to contain control. And it's like I said, in terms of like my dynamic,
you are completely delusional. These countries will not voluntarily. I don't know why you don't just admit the truth. Yeah, it's going to require Russia invading. You're trying to have this absurd hypothetical like the people of these countries will rise up in revolt because they're all Russia-loving people and they're just going to take over their governments and say, here, Putin, now you rule us. It's not happening.
No. What I'm saying is that when this comes to be, Rob, because what you're ignoring is my point earlier where I'm saying the only reason why the Ukrainian war is continuing is because of France and the UK.
Okay, let's accept that. Okay, now how do we get to, therefore, Russia invades and every country says, we voluntarily give up to Russia? Go ahead, explain that link.
Yeah, so because you're the one who's saying this is impossible because there's no way the likes of Estonians, Latvians, Lithuanians and stuff are going to ask themselves, what are we giving our lives up for this war? Why would I go fight this war?
So
when my values align, one sec, Rob, when my values align more so with the Russians than this amalgamation apparently of the European Union when it's realistically just like France and the UK that have the say.
Okay,
like
why haven't they left the EU and sided with Russia?
because anytime there's an anti-EU candidate, it's like the same thing with the US aid.
So your
How
argument is
they destabilize other nations and they make sure like this happened in Ireland.
I want you to tell me. Russia does something. Yeah. They're going to take over the EU. They do something, and they're like, we now take over Estonia.
Yeah.
What happened? They don't send troops. They don't send any conflict. They do nothing like that. They just say, we're going to take over Estonia, and the Estonia people say, yes, we like that. We like that. Now we're part of Russia, and our leaders, time to get out. We're actually pro-Russia.
So like all these NGOs that like prop up candidates, all pro-European candidates, that's what happens across Europe.
I want you to explain. Yes, there are pro-EU candidates that NGOs put up. What does that have to do? I want you to give me the scenario. Let's limit it to
like
Estonia.
You're saying, like you're basically saying we can vote ourselves out of this. And I'm pointing to the tyranny in the UK, the tyranny in France, the tyranny across all of the European Union. And you're saying, no, I'd rather we vote ourselves out of this. I'm saying, no, it's a lot easier and straightforward if there's a conflict.
That's not what I'm saying. You're not following what I'm saying. What I'm saying right now for this point is this is going to be a conflict. It's going to be a conflict between Russia and European states. It's going to be a war, and it's going to be a conflict between Russia and the United States. Millions will die. Your argument's like, no, I think that Europe will completely roll over. Without military conquest, Russia will just declare, we run the EU, and that'll be how it happens. The EU will roll over. And you're like, and the reason I know this is because coups have existed and civil wars have existed, and the people of Estonia would welcome Russian rulers. And so I'm like, okay, explain how this plays out. And you're like, well, there are NGOs that push globalist candidates. Okay, agree with that. Well, no. It's because, let me finish.
No.
Well, it's because of France that the war in Ukraine is continuing. Okay, what does that have anything to do with your claim that the people of Estonia would welcome Russia ruling over them? Show me the proof.
That was a complete straw man on position. The reason why I'm bringing up this whole like the NGOs propping up pro-EU candidates, it means that like this whole thing of like just get out of the EU, like that's an almost near impossible thing to do when you have all these NGOs funneling all these pro-EU candidates. So it's like in terms of like actual representation, like me as an Irish person, like, and so I know for a fact that there are plenty of Europeans that are saying if Brussels is going to rule us anyway, we'd rather have someone who's more conservative than the
who funds the NGOs? What?
Private interests.
Oh, who are the private interests?
Do you want me to start rattling off?
Yes,
how is this relevant to my point?
I would say
how is this relevant to my point, Rob?
I think because it's going to be powerful interests. In fact, you're wrong that the majority of these NGOs aren't just private interests. The majority of the money coming from them is from government sources. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what governments are funding these NGOs?
Our own governments,
and yet they're just
how is this relevant?
They're going to sit back and say, "Oh, never mind. Russia declared that they win, so we've already spent billions in NGOs to make sure that these governments are on our side, but we're just going to let Russia roll in with no consequences whatsoever." That's your argument.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is that the conflict in Ukraine, like the dam is going to break, like that things, and then France and UK are going to like make up some bullshit reason of saying this is a noble war, we need to fight this war. And what I'm saying to you, Rob, is when it comes to the European Union, especially like the Europeans in general, like why would we fight this war?
One
sec. As a conservative European, why would you fight for EU when it's basically just Macron and Starmer that are leading the charge?
I'm not fighting for the EU in the same sense that if China invaded, and your question was, why would you fight for Kamala Harris? I wouldn't be fighting for Kamala Harris. I would be fighting for my homeland being invaded and taken over by a hostile foreign power. Just like so many people in Afghanistan weren't fighting for the Taliban, they were fighting against what they saw as an invasion from a hostile foreign power. Just like so many people that fought for Libya weren't fighting for Gaddafi, they were fighting against the invasion of what they saw as a hostile foreign power. That's the issue. Would you acknowledge, I want to go back to that scenario that you conveniently left out.
No, because your paint is like this, you know that this is going to happen. You don't know this is going to happen because look at that Iran. One sec, when Israel bombed Iran, the Iranians cheered that on. So this whole thing of like all these people like love the tyranny of the EU is bullshit, Rob.
I don't know what to say other than that you're in a complete lack of reality. You're claiming, you keep like hedging to things that aren't remotely what I'm saying. I'm not saying that these people love the EU. I'm saying they would hate more being invaded by a hostile foreign power.
No.
They're not going to just say, oh, okay, we don't like Brussels, so come on in, Russia, you rule us now. That's not how it works.
Okay. Let me paint this picture. It's either the Islamists or it's Russia. Which are you picking,
Rob? My goodness.
Which are you picking? I picked your bullshit thing. You picked my shit.
Your question has no basis in the topic at hand.
Answer it. Islamists or Russia?
Your hypothetical of what group I think would be better to be ruled under isn't answering the practical implications of how this scenario would play out.
I'm asking you as a conservative, Rob. Which would you pick?
I would pick the Islamists, given that your scenario for Russia is nuclear annihilation in World War III. I would rather live and have London have
It's nuclear annihilation either way.
No, it's nuclear. No, it's not.
So if the Islamists, one sec, Rob. So if the Islamists take over the UK, which already have nukes, you're telling me that's not nuclear war already?
Yes, I'm telling you that
that's not. Oh my God.
I don't buy this acceleration as bullshit. I don't buy the black pill. Trust us, we're all dead in nuclear annihilation in 50 years anyways, so let's just have a great World War III right now. No, I don't buy that. I think that when you are suggesting the intentional start of World War III, that's a fucking bad idea. And saying, trust me, bro, Islamists will take over London and launch nuclear weapons anyway, so we have to do it now. It's the same neocon bullshit we've heard for years.
What I'm saying is the demographics does show that that's a fact, that the UK will become a Muslim majority. And when you look at the Muslims,
then the United States can invade and take over
America, they are Islamists. And like I said, you're saying that all this stuff would quote unquote cause World War III. I would argue we're already in World War III, because when you look at the geographical moves that America's currently making, it's none different than what I'm suggesting Russia does.
Would you admit that the United States is going to fall to the same thing as London if status quo continues?
Sorry, what?
Would you admit that the United States will be in the same position as the United Kingdom maybe 30, 40 years down the road if trends continue with the invasion of Islamists?
No, it would take a lot longer than
but inevitably it's going to happen.
A key distinction between America and Europe is that mainland Europe, 50%, on average, 50% of people are atheist. Where that's not the case in America.
So then you ignore the demographic shift in America. Need I bring up the collapse of Christianity?
One sec. What I'm saying is it's a lot sooner and a lot worse in the likes of UK.
Sure,
in the likes of France.
Worse, but we're talking inevitabilities. Inevitably, will the United States go this path?
If that comes to be, if things start to continue at current rates, yes.
So then Russia should invade the United States as well.
It's coming to that. Like I said, why is Trump talking about Canada and Greenland?
Don't demur, don't deflect. Yes or no?
I'm not deflecting.
Given that you're saying that it is inevitable, the Islamists will rule the United States, you also think that Russia should invade the United States then, correct?
No, because the UK is going to happen first.
Okay, so they should invade the UK, take over the United Kingdom, and then invade the United States.
Mm-hmm. No, because like I said, you conceded America would be forced into action. And like I said, America would win that war and come out the victor. So it actually works in America's benefit. Because one sec, Rob, because again, I'm making the case to the American audience. You guys, all you'd have to do would be stand down, let shit get bad, and then come in as the heroes.
What's that have
Just
to
like
do
in
with
World War
how
II,
would
baby?
That change the demographic shifts in the United States?
In
fact, what's likely to happen under your scenario is we'd see a lot of refugees.
Yeah, I can answer that. I can actually answer that.
Yeah.
We have a current birth rate crisis in all these Western countries, but also in Eastern countries as well. But there's one state that actually is like sticks out because it's basically a Western country, but it has 2.1 replacement rate. Do you know what state that is?
Like
that's Israel.
Okay.
Why does Israel have a 2.1? Because they don't have this feminist problem where like people have been basically.
So then Israel should take over the United States.
People have been basically kind of they've been lured into a false sense of security with the peace laws kind of shit. They take shit for granted.
Mm-hmm. So Jews should take over Israel.
They start seeing oppression in stuff that's not even oppression. They start saying that motherhood is oppression. You know, in Israel, the bitches can't start talking about like bullshit saying that's oppression because they look across the street and they see a woman in a burqa and then they understand exactly what oppression is. So the reason why Israel doesn't have a birth rate crisis is because they're constantly in war because they're constantly being attacked.
Okay, so just to see where we're going from this, yes, the United States
and the birth rate across Western countries was the same thing.
We need to trigger.
World War II birth rates went up.
Hold up, Tag. Let him answer.
So we need to start World War III because if we don't, we're all doomed anyways because of demographic shifts in Europe. Those demographic shifts in the United States are also inevitable, but for some reason we shouldn't cheer for Russia to invade the United States as well to prevent this because Israel has high birth rates. Did I get that right?
No, that was a complete straw man.
Now, that's
complete
exactly what you
bastardization.
said. And so the idea, if it's true that the Jewish people have higher birth rates, would you cheer for Israel invading and taking over the United States? Should we all become Jewish?
No, the reason, again, this is a straw man. Let me explain. Don't interrupt, okay? I gave you time, okay? The reason why this is a straw man is I'm pointing out the birth rates of Israel to show that, like, a war is not necessarily a bad thing and we should always run away from war and all this kind of shit. There are righteous wars.
Okay, so your argument is the reason the birth rates are high in Israel is because of constant war.
Yes.
And therefore, the United States needs to be in perpetual war to increase our birth rates.
Strife is constant.
So you are advocating as a positive World War III and constant war. Because that increases birth rates.
No. I'm not arguing that we should start World War III. What I'm saying is that World War III has already begun.
Okay, so then why aren't birth rates increasing in Europe if they're already in war?
Because we often technically it has started, but it's not kind of like widespread.
So
at the moment.
you acknowledge
but when you look at
the birth rate
when you look at America,
real quick. The idea of World War, just to be clear, the idea of World War is the world at war, and you say that means that birth rates will go up. So just to be clear, you're no longer worried about a birth rate crisis because seeing as how the world is already at war, that's about to shoot up, correct?
No, what I'm saying is that when you look at the current geopolitical moves, because like I said, I don't know if you're intentionally misunderstanding or what, but in terms of when you look at the moves that America is making alone, like that's like basic grounds for World War III.
I don't know what you're talking about. Grounds for World War III isn't what you suggested. You suggested we quite literally are already in World War III.
Yeah.
Okay. But then the birth rate problem solved. You say war means birth rates up.
What are you talking about? No.
You just said
this shit takes time.
Okay, so
one sec, Rob, because I know you're straw man right now. If I pass a policy, is there going to be an automatic change the next day?
No.
Are we going to see the results? Exactly. It's going to take time for the results.
How long have we been
so like this whole thing of like, oh, we're in World War III, like, oh, the birth rate should be start going up right now. That's bullshit, Robin. You know it.
How long have we been in World War III?
Difficult to say. Because it depends on, quote unquote, who started it.
Okay, well, I want you to tell me in your estimation. Most people, in fact, you're the only person that I've heard.
Yeah, let's do this. Like, I would mark that like basically Charlie Kirk was Franz Ferdinand. Okay, that's basically what kicked all this shit off.
Charlie Kirk was the start of World War III. How many years do you estimate does this mean then the entire world's birth rates will increase because they're now all at war?
Well, like in terms of the official declaration, all this kind of shit, like that's another thing as well. But in terms of like the quote unquote unofficial marker, like I'd place it at that event. That's when it's like there's no talking to these people that it's basically we're fucked.
So then your argument is you define world war as different stages. Mm-hmm. So when I'm talking world war, I'm talking about kinetic conflict amongst world
like I said, the only reason why I brought up the birth rates was because to show that like war can actually be a good thing. This whole thing of like saying that war will necessarily increase the birth rate straight away or whatever straw man Rob's trying to create now, I've never said that. I've just said pointing to that war can actually be a positive.
You made a complete absurd non sequitur. Mm-hmm. I correctly pointing out that the way the demographics are going is the United States, just like Europe, if trends continue, will be overran by Islamists and be beyond hope. Your only defense to that is, but it will take longer. Nonetheless, though, given the inevitability, you would support the invasion of US by Russia. You're like, no, because things could change. I said, why? You say, because Israel has high birth rates. And you make the claim without any proof whatsoever. The reason Israel has high birth rates, it's not because they are wealthy, they're subsidized by the Western world, that there's religious and cultural practices that encourage them to have children. Nope, it's all because of war. And therefore, war is a good thing because that will lead to birth rates increasing. So all of a sudden, the Islamists that are outbreeding in the United States and the mass importation of refugees and Islamists will all of a sudden, white Christians are going to be like, you know what, I need to have 7 kids now because we're in World War III. I don't see the connection. Also, I think that what you're likely to see is a mass refugee flux from European countries into the United States as we see this kinetic war, thereby exacerbating the demographic change in places like the United States.